you're on the wrong side of the hard stop. Now you're in the overtime.
That
Hello,
was 15
overtime.
minutes? Okay.
Now there's no time limits. So
Okay.
um, that is interesting. I mean, like, because you do. It, I don't know the right way to phrase this, and it's not in any way supposed to be negative because it is. You made a comment with respect to needing to live up to what what your auntie has done and the things she's done, like especially with respect to education, with respect to urban education, with the and you be able to correct me if if I miss the pieces. I mean, like up the street here. So when you mentioned Cam, who's the current president of the NAACP Des Moines chapter, who's in the Evelyn K. Davis Center, with Deirdre, and then across the street though is in a lot of ways one of the monuments as I understand them to your aunt's legacy, which is making sure that we, you know, this is supposed to be your interview, but I'll have one. So Cam brought me into a group at the EKD one time, and we're talking about how to assist within our neighborhood. How do we assist with minority businesses? Help to make sure that they're can be more vibrant. What resource do we provide? Now, we did a SWOT analysis of the team we had in the room, and so it's me, Cam, and a bunch of other folk. And so they asked, what may be our blind spots? And I, being at the moment, I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything here, but
You the only white guy in the room? Is that why you felt like you couldn't say anything?
here's what's funnier. So I said, I said we may have a gender imbalance, and they said, what? And I was like, there's 15 people in this room. There's Cam and there's me, who's the white dude. So like, all you are black women who like have run the show for your whole life, and your number one problem with respect to underemployment and bringing people back from incarceration, other types of items, we keep identifying that we have a gender issue here. None of you are black dudes. Like there's a gender imbalance in power in the African American community locally in the same way when we look at the other side, which is the Des Moines Partnership and these traditional sort of Des Moines influence groups. If you went into the Des Moines Partnership and said there aren't enough women at the table, all the old white guys would be like, what are you talking about? There's the right number. And it was striking how that same blind spot was
Mm-hmm.
so completely inverted that when you're over looking at issues within a lot of our communities, that we are not um, acknowledging that a lot of these are being driven by who we're not appropriately identifying.
Yeah, so like the decision makers don't reflect those that are impacted.
I think within that room, um, there
Or
was
maybe
a lack of acknowledgement of who actually were the decision makers. I think,
I can understand that perspective too.
who are
Um,
literally running the businesses that are successful, who are running the businesses that actually were the ones driving decisions, who drove decisions in the home, who drove decisions in the community. It was not what you expected on the other side of town, which is interesting.
yeah. Um, and I've seen that in several different occasions, both like I guess professionally and in a personal dynamic where, and don't get me wrong, like I feel like the people that are getting involved are really coming from a place of good-heartedness. Like they're really passionate about their community and they do want to see change and positive growth. But like you said, it is a blind spot, and um, unfortunately, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like you have these people that are able and willing to give their time without being asked. And then you have that sometimes the target demographic where, you know, well, we want to help this specific demographic. And so how do we get those people involved? And then they're not necessarily involved. It's like, well, then what do? Do you take the help that you're getting for free, and not really getting much pushback in terms of actually, you know, needing to pull them to the nail? Or do you want to have to put up a fight with the people to get engaged that are actually going to see the most, you know, impact by this discussion? And then you're finding, you know, it's just, they have too many things going on and this cannot be a priority. So it's like, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I would love to see with those, especially with the people that work in and out of the Evelyn K. Davis Center, you know, where they work on reinstituting previously incarcerated inmates back into the community. I would love to see if, you know, those gentlemen being put in some kind of program, not saying it's like a community service type thing, but an actual willingness to volunteer with local young men. I mean, it's not unheard of, especially in Black and brown communities, even here in Des Moines, where you're growing up in a fatherless household, whether that be by personal choice or by that being the fact that the man of the household has been incarcerated. I mean, if you're looking at the stats of the state of Iowa, it makes no sense as to why only 4% of the entire state's population is African American, and yet 30% of the prison population is African American. Like, that is completely disproportionate to any other race, and it just does not make sense. And so again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, how can we expect Black and brown men to show up at the table to have the conversation when they don't even have the freedom to visit their family? So it's just like, what do you do? And you know, it's not something that is a easy fix answer. It's another one of those cyclical situations. We need to be able to get and target these young men when they are in the age of adolescence and easier to mold, but they cannot be talked to by women. They do need to be talked to by men. But unfortunately, how many men do we have that are able and willing to go out into the community and do this? I mean, if they're out there, I really hope that they are putting in that time. And I commend the men that are already doing that now. But I'd also ask that those men start asking more of their guy friends to come along with them when they're volunteering in Big Brother, Big Sister, or when they're doing after school programs, because that's really what matters. And then hopefully those young gentlemen will, you know, not be incarcerated because of that impactful mentorship. But at the same time, it's like, we need to have a better cultural relationship. I mean, if you look at the demographics of how Des Moines public schools are set up, it's still, I mean, it's not segregated, but like, you know, most of the Black kids go to Roosevelt. So, you know, like, it's not segregated, but most Asians go to Lincoln. Like, if you're Asian and you live in Des Moines, you either went to Lincoln or East. If you're a refugee, you probably went to Hoover. Like, there are strategic locations, and I'm so mad that the redlining presentation or display that they had in the city of Des Moines was, you know, cut short because of COVID. But it really does show how Des Moines has been negatively impacted by redlining. I mean, if we talk about your neighborhood where you're at in the Drake community, historically speaking, like, that is a very Black and brown neighborhood. But what is happening now, as our economy is coming back up, a lot of these homes are getting bought out by white men. Sorry, Draper. But you actually have a Black and brown family in your house. You know, you're giving back to the culture. But no, like, I mean, even my house, like, I didn't buy it from the original owner. I bought it from somebody that flipped it. And that's what you're seeing a lot of in these underdeveloped communities, where people are coming in that have no connection to the neighborhood whatsoever. They're buying the house. They're fixing it up just enough to be able to resell it again. And it jacks up the property value of everybody in that neighborhood. And so what are these families supposed to do when they're already considered low middle class, low wage earning households, that all of a sudden now my bills are going up $2,000 more a year? Like, no, it's forcing people out of their homes. It's gentrification 101, and it's happening here in Des Moines. But it's not going to get any better if we're not feeding back into ourselves.
So you're a fan of the skate park?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, no, like, I mean, I am a fan of anything that gets kids to be outside and be active, but I also need people to be smart about where it is that you decide to do these innovations. I mean, are the kids in that neighborhood really going to be skating all the time, or is it going to be overpopulated with, kids from outside the area and, Karens that are going to show up and, try to control everything? I feel like instead of just putting something there because you think it's nice, because your kids from the suburbs think it would be nice, really consider, what do the people in that community need? And if it ain't a skate park, don't put a skate park there.
If you're like poking the bear here, because I will go off on this skate park for days, as is probably not a surprise.
Yeah, let's
Um,
talk about the kids in the neighborhood that may not be able to finish their course during COVID-19 because they don't have, internet in their house. But you want to build a skate park? Like, how about let's put money back into the community so that every home that is going to DMPS has the ability to learn remotely during this time? Or if that's the case, I mean, like, what if you're not able to do that? What kind of facility can we set up that is social distancing compatible, where there can be that learning opportunity? But simply just being like, oh, well, I guess it is what it is. Like, SOL, like, that's not acceptable. Like, these are the people of the future. Like, eventually these are going to be taxpayers. These are going to be people that are showing up for elections. So you want to make sure that they have the best to succeed and they don't turn into little assholes that are spiteful because they grew up with nothing.
I do think what is interesting. So this is the internet issue has been one of the bees in my bonnet for ages, especially because again, Drake neighborhood is supposedly our premier institution in Des Moines, and my internet connection here is like shoddy Mediacom or like copper over CenturyLink, right? It's amazing that we have so little access to the digital community in an area of town that is supposed to be theoretically, one of our intellectual hotbeds where we're, innovative and whatever we are, right? To that end, though, I have been pleasantly, invigorated or pushed forward or surprised in some ways that your city manager, Scott and Matt, actually have been very active towards looking at the reality that as a city, we need to lay down good roads. Those roads aren't just for cars, they aren't for electricity, they are for data, they are for access, they are for the opportunity for equity in the modern workforce, which you can't do without internet.
Right. Or
I've
why
been
don't
less
we just have
impressed so far with
public internet that is,
what's that?
I said, why don't we just have public internet and have it installed every so far, just like we have, street lights that come up at night? I find it funny that here in what is considered to be a first world country, we don't have public Wi-Fi in other than, you go to a McDonald's or you go to a Starbucks. Whereas when I go on vacation to the Dominican, in a third world country, I can get Wi-Fi in a bus that looks like a van. Like, it amazes me that when I go to, even when I was visiting my sister in South Korea, like, I could find public Wi-Fi everywhere. And let me tell you, When you are living in a country where you do not know the language and you have no idea where you're going, how nice it is to have internet so I can use my translator app to be like, hey, how can I find this? Or if I can't find anybody I can talk to, I can at least download a map. I can use my GPS locator with the Wi-Fi to figure out how to get back to where I need to go. And it's just like, if these other places, which America is supposedly so much better than, why don't we have these things?
This was a point that was made the other day where it's like, how do we have scarcity? We are producing so much. We supposedly have so much money. The economy is theoretically doing so well. The stock market is theoretically doing so well. The percentage of people engaged in the stock market, being a cynical individual, I am luckily not someone who took a hit in the stock market. I was like, I don't believe in that bloated stuff. But it blows my mind sometimes when you think about it that we have access to scarcity anymore. I've yet to understand how someone can argue that we don't have the ability to eliminate scarcity. The bottom 51% of America has a negative wealth.
Yep.
Well, actually, that's not true. That was before 36 million people lost their jobs.
Right?
So
like we are at an all-time high for unemployment since the Great Depression. Like, how? All because a bug is out there? Like, really? That's all it took? Like, everybody caught like a severe virus? Like, what? How?
What's also interesting, though, I've got a lot of friends in a lot of places across, the country, other areas, and most people don't see it. We've lost 3 next door, 2 at the end of the block, and I'm not looking out the window all day to see where the ambulance is going. But as you start seeing multiple people going out on stretchers with, pushed by people in hazmat suits, that's weird. And the fact that we are now, excelling at our COVID infection rate nationally. I don't know why the Greater Des Moines Partnership hasn't put out a listicle about how good we're doing with our coronavirus infection rate. Because I'll tell you what.
Or the city of Des Moines.
Hey, that's about the only thing that we're actually numerically killing at, right? There's a lot of listicles that they're bullshit, but like we are doing a verifiably good job at COVID infection rate. I don't know why we haven't been a good listicle for that. Besides the CDC's one. I mean, like, obviously, we hit that one and the other scientist ones. But, like, the listicles we keep seeing, like Economic Developers Monthly and, dreamsforamerica.com. Why can't we lead the list in probability of dying with someone with a hazmat suit over you?
I mean, like, I know, like, this is a serious conversation, but it's almost comical. It's like, we talk about
being facetious.
I know, it's just like
important.
No, it definitely is, but it's just like, we talk about these numbers as though they're not associated with people. Like, we're treating this as a competition when at the end of the day, it's all cyclical. Like, the people keep dying. Eventually, we're all going to die. Like, the virus will have nowhere else to go but these live cells that are hanging around unless you have, some immunity to it. And it's just like, yeah, we are getting better, but we have been doing well for now. But the fact still remains that we don't have sufficient testing. We don't have any kind of cure. And we're kind of just, playing Darwinism here.
Oh, and I apparently was a little too dry in my humor. There is no indication on our block we're doing well. We are doing horribly. the fact that I can go out every other day and take a picture of someone in a hazmat suit moving a neighbor out is depressing.
So
And
I
I
will
don't.
avoid your side of town because I don't see that. Like my block literally is full of children. Several little kids are out here driving like their little dirt bikes, jumping on trampolines. I'm very fortunate and I feel very blessed that I don't have to witness what you just did. Because honestly, for me, I don't really know any person like on a first person basis that has it.
Oh, dude,
Like
we've had three next door.
oh my goodness, like that, this is how I hear the stories. Like oh, like my mom has said that her next door neighbor's mom had gotten it. Doesn't live next door to her, but it's like it's those hearsay conversations. And while I am trying to take this very seriously, I still do have a little bit of more questioning in my head, like what is really going on, like how serious should I really be about wearing this mask. And then it's just like an endless cycle of OCD and questions. Like in my car I have gloves that I go into the store with. I have a Lysol antibacterial spray that I literally like in the car. I'm like suffocating myself because I spray my steering wheel, I spray my handle because I shut the door, I spray my keys because I had to touch those before I like used the spray and all. And then when I take my gloves off, I have the hand sanitizer too. But it's just like I already had OCD before, but like, is this something like I really need to be like as anal as I am? But at the same time, just like when I go to the dentist and I get fluoride, I've never had a cavity, I have perfect teeth, but I still get fluoride every time I go to the dentist and pay extra because I don't need it. Why? Because it's a method that seems to work. So why not stop doing it? But it's just it's a lot of, you know, do I freak out or, do I try to empathize with these protesters? That'll never happen. But it's like a ping pong thought that just I feel like is a daily experience.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, do I actually take the health crisis seriously? Do I empathize with white supremacists? I I get you. I
No.
see I see why you're torn. Um, no, I don't. You're
No, I mean, yes, no, it's definitely not I no empathy for white supremacists, but it's just like empathizing in terms of, well, how soon should we go back to a normal life? And I'm really disappointed that we don't have any type of leadership telling us how that is supposed to go. Like I feel really disappointed that we don't have a lot of direction here on how we're going to be reopening. Like, are we phasing this in? Like, I know Reynolds has talked about, oh, well, these certain counties are going to be able to stay, open
uh,
because they haven't had any cases. But, like, at the same time, like, what does that look like? I mean, like, are you requiring people to have face masks? Are you requiring that these individuals get X, Y, and Z? And it's pretty much just left up to corporations to make a conscious decision about how they re-engage with the public. And it's
no,
just
dude,
like, does
in five
everybody
hours it's gonna be
play
normal.
customer service? Like, who who are setting these standards?
No, in 5 hours, the virus will be defeated. We are now normal as of 5 a.m. on Friday, which is, yeah, I'm sorry, 4 hours
Good
now.
day.
Not to like, yeah, not to like blow the whistle on what time it is, but in 4 hours, Iowa will be normal. We're all going to go back to getting haircuts. You obviously jumped the line.
Yep.
Um,
DIY, man. I did this
Me
Corona
too.
style.
I Mine's DIY too. I wake up this way.
Yeah. I woke up like this. I
But
woke
it
up
is
like this. Oh my
no.
goodness. You got my face.
He needs a haircut.
Yeah.
But the I agree with you 1,000% though that it would be nice to have um, leadership right now that was thinking through step two, like not
Yeah.
just step one. We've got
And
step
not
one, which
vague
is
answers, definitive answers. Like, what is our action plan?
right. Yeah, I like, or even just scenario analysis. Like saying, okay, look, here's the three things we could do. Here's step A. Here's A1, A2, A2. Okay, now here's the five B's that could happen, and the six C's, right? I mean, just the idea of having an idea that we've thought through. If this goes wrong,
Yeah,
what goes next?
yeah. Like, how are we going to shut down again? Like, at what, like, I guess, what statistical number are you looking for that says, oh shit, we opened too soon, shut us back down? Like, what does that even look like?
Do you want an answer? Because I have the answer.
Oh, what is it?
It's when the folk up in the fourth district with all the guns and all their idea that this is who we win the election for come down and say, "Ooh, okay, you're right. Enough of us are dying. We're going to be good." So when all the evangelicals say, "You know what? We don't need to go to church anymore," that I think seems to be our time.
But it's like, you you have access to technology. You can still have a service. Like, I know several churches that are having Facebook sermons. Like, it's not, and I know it sucks, it really does, but wouldn't it be great to know that in a year from now you can hug your grandma if you just
How?
left her alone for 2 months?
Yeah, but when was the last time that church was about spiritualism, or church was about what was claimed in 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 that place? I think that's our other. I've never been shy about identifying that I think the downfall of America can be attributed to Oral Roberts. Accelerated by Ayn Rand, fine, but Oral Roberts, in my opinion, was the downfall of America because he was the one who turned a rich man from a camel to a saint. Prior to Oral Roberts, rich people were the camel trying to get through a needle. And now we're like, oh, God bless them. And so that's why they're rich. And now we're trying to receive God's grace through the idea that if you're rich, you are
Are
graceful or
blessed.
you blessed. I'm so hashtag blessed is the number one thing I wish I could. If I was going to change my three things, I would make every social media platform be unable to type hashtag blessed. You could get all the way to BLESSE, but you could never do a D. You can never be blessed. You can be
Hashtag
blessed.
blessed.
You could be blessé. And you could be blessé, hashtag Target, do whatever you want, but you are never going to be able to be hashtag blessed. I would never allow hashtag blessed
It's
in
the little things,
my.
right?
Was that?
I said it's the little things, right?
I think it's a big thing, though. I
But continue.
and
Okay, so I want to understand, like, why hashtag blessed gets under your skin so much. Like, where does this stem from?
I think it comes down to your 2 points, though. Um, the idea that God believes your presence is so significant that God intervened to make your situation better, right? I see God being able to do more macro things. I don't see, like, you've got this guy who's like responsible theoretically for 7 billion people in the clouds, and that motherfucker's like, you know what? Jimmy needs a new pair of shoes. Fuck you, God didn't do that. God, like, how is it that God won every basketball game in the last 3 years NBA Finals? Like, how did God do that? Because it wasn't LeBron winning every game, right? And that
Right.
guy's Jesus. So, I mean, how is it that God was on the side of the victors every single time? I find
That's
that
because,
so selfish.
well, yeah, it is because, and it's the same, as they talk about war. The history is written by the one who's victorious.
Well, that
Um,
was William Barr. William Barr said he can destroy the justice system because history is written by the victor. I'm not trying to throw World War II things into you or anything, but I'm
no,
just
no, no,
telling
no,
you,
no. But I mean, there is truth
William
to
Barr
that.
was the origin of that. That is our new facts.
Ding. No, but I mean, like, it's true.
I'm
I
watching
mean,
too much slang. I'm sorry.
yeah. It's true, though. I mean, like, those who are in power have the right to, or I guess, will themselves to write the storyline. I mean, you can even look at historically speaking in the US. I mean, a lot of where we are as a country today stem from our capitalist culture taking advantage of other people. Do they acknowledge that this, advantage and disadvantages help project a lot of people's financial positions today? No, they want to act like they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. Um,